Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we'll be counting down our picks for the top 10 games developers are ashamed of.
I was a child, always with something to prove, a chip on my shoulder.
For this list, we're looking at some of the most embarrassing video games that developers would rather you forget. Let us know in the comments which one you wouldn't want to put your name on. Number 10. Brink. Though Bethesda has had plenty of duds by now, in 2011 it was a different story. The faction-based FPS looked interesting before it came out. You played as a resistance movement trying to seize control of a futuristic floating city, or the security forces trying to stop them. But it was released to almost no fanfare and was resoundingly mediocre. Its developer Splash Damage had previously been known for making Wolfenstein and Quake spin-offs, and Brink certainly didn't help them expand beyond making expansions and additional modes for existing games. It was totally forgotten, and even going free-to-play in 2017 couldn't help it. Number 9. Pac-Man. The original arcade version of Pac-Man remains one of the greatest and most influential video games ever made, and it's had plenty of great ports and updated versions with new twists over the years. But Pac-Man on the Atari 2600 was a different story entirely. Though it sold well, it was clear that nobody actually enjoyed playing it. It was widely seen as a deeply inferior version of Pac-Man, lacking its colorful graphics and responsive controls. The screen flickered, the ghosts were all pink and didn't have distinct behaviors, and the joystick was notoriously poor. You were better off just heading to the arcade and letting Pac-Man eat all your change. Number 8. Destiny. We know that Destiny has come a long way since its 2014 launch, so far that it remains a widely popular MMO with tons of content and expansions. But it wasn't always this way, and in the beginning, Destiny probably wasn't something anybody would be proud of. At launch, it had a messy story and nowhere near enough content to be the full $60 Activision decided to sell it at. And then, to make matters worse, Activision forced Bungie to make Destiny 2 instead of just focusing on updating and improving the original game. Finally, Bungie split from Activision and was allowed to transform Destiny into the game so many know and love today. Number 7. Metroid Other M. Though Other M wasn't as egregious as many of the other games on our list, it still occupies a complex position in the hearts of Metroid's many fans. This was largely because it was pretty short, and the story contradicted everything we'd spent decades knowing about Samus. And though much of the gameplay was solid, it had a few features no fans enjoyed. Despite having some redemptive qualities, Other M's reception was negative enough that the series went on a hiatus for the next 6 years.
I was a child, always with something to prove, a chip on my shoulder.
Number 6. Tom Clancy's Elite Squad.
Before they left the building, Umbra tried to destroy as much evidence as they could. They clearly didn't want to leave anything for us to find.
It launched in 2020 to some controversy, thanks to Alliant's decision to use the Black Power Fist as the logo of its in-game radical organization, Umbra. This was ultimately changed, but it couldn't save Elite Squad, which turned out to be one of the worst Tom Clancy games ever made. Though it was going to be a huge crossover between all of Ubisoft's Tom Clancy characters, it was a resounding disappointment. very few people actually tried to play the game despite updates coming out. And in 2021, only a year after the game's reveal, it was announced that updates would end and that servers would be shut down.
As I said, it's bad.
Number 5. Fallout 76.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm home.
Like Destiny, Fallout 76 has changed its fortunes since its release, but there are plenty of people who are so burned by the game at launch that they just don't want to pick it up and try it now. As well as simply being, a completely broken mess of a game with no NPCs, no real story, and very little content, Fallout 76 had shameful effects on the real world as well. The collector's edition items were moldy and of poor quality, while people trying to get refunds were accidentally doxxed by Bethesda's own forums. And then Bethesda introduced a subscription service to access private servers, which led to even more division between the few players the game had at the time. Number 4. Final Fantasy XIV.
Feel. Think.
Look, Father! Fireworks!
With the great success of Final Fantasy XIV: A Realm Reborn, it's easy to forget that Square Enix's latest Final Fantasy MMO wasn't always this good. The original release was absolutely abysmal thanks to the terrible gameplay and unwieldy UI. Square Enix was so shocked by the backlash that it overhauled the development team, and a brand new relaunched version was released 3 years later. Thankfully, A Realm Reborn was great, and Final Fantasy XIV remains one of the most popular MMOs on the market, but it wouldn't have been this way if the first attempt wasn't so shamefully bad. Number 3. Anthem. We saw some intriguing footage of Anthem at E3 2018, but it was clear all along that very few people were that invested in it. It was simply EA's attempt to capitalize on the success of Destiny, and was something no BioWare fan wanted from the beloved studio behind Dragon Age and Mass Effect. And it seemed many people at BioWare didn't want Anthem either, as there were many high-profile departures from the project.
Well, it's not like anybody would be ready for that.
Upon release, Anthem was found to be so glitchy that it even bricked entire consoles, and EA finally decided to shutter it in 2020 before the launch of Anthem Next. It was yet another unfortunate failure for BioWare after Mass Effect Andromeda. Number 2. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Few developers have made a game so bad that thousands of copies of it were buried in the desert. In fact, Atari might be the only company to do so. E.T. wasn't the only game that ended up in a New Mexico landfill in 1983 following the disastrous video game crash, but it was the most infamous, with Atari harboring thousands of unsold copies. Its development was rushed so that it could coincide with the movie's release, and this definitely shows. As E.T. himself, you're tasked with wandering aimlessly around some fields looking for parts for an intergalactic telephone and trying not to fall into a pit. And that's the entire game. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Postal 3.
Aw, those guys look scared and cold down there. Would it be wrong of me to want to warm them up?
It's not often we get a game so bad that its own developers recommend people don't play it, but Postal 3 is one such title. Postal was a series that built its reputation on being offensive, which is also the exact reason so many people love the first 2 games. Unfortunately, Postal 3 couldn't toe the line between being funny and just plain crude, making it an unfunny and juvenile game.
On the other hand, if I sided with the eco-zealots, I heard those granola chicks are animals in the sack. I knew I needed to make a story-altering choice, and fast.
On top of that, it's also extremely buggy and an all-around bad experience to play. It was so widely hated by fans that Running with Scissors reassessed it and decided they weren't going to sell it online anymore.
It's health delicious for the whole family.
It keeps your bowels regular. Free cucumbers for the ladies.
In the mood for more awesome gaming content? Be sure to check out this video here on Mojo Plays. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.